Have you ever seen a miracle? Last week, I did. In a time that is filled with bad news, followed by more bad news, when every day brings some report of rising anti-Semitism around the globe, on Thursday, our clergy team sat with a vibrant young woman around a small table at Mayim Chaim, as she declared after 4 years of studying that she wanted to join the Jewish people. Join the Jewish people, we asked. Now? She explained that her favorite holiday is Passover. Not for all those great Passover delicacies like matzah and more matzah. I know, you already miss it now, right? No, she said Passover for the transformative power which hit her this year, that she was not just reading history, she was joining history. That our story is not in the past, but is lived out in the way that we bring our memory with us to make each moment matter. Having just returned from the March of the Living, where 40 members of our Temple Emmanuel group went to Poland to touch our people's tragic past in the concentration camps, and then traveled to Israel, where we grappled with a painful present, this young woman's insight struck me deeply. That is, after all, the premise of the march, that we are not just reading history, but joining history. Every barrack, every somber shoe, every story of a survivor, an opportunity to become a sacred witness to both horror and hope. I had been on the March of the Living before, some of you even in this room, and then it was a trip that had a narrative arc that was easy and obvious. The Holocaust happened in the hellfires of Europe, and now we were going to march triumphantly in the opposite direction out from those famous gates that say, Arbeit macht frei, work will set you free, singing at the top of our lungs, Am Yisrael Chai. This year, we marched too. And this year, we sang. And we planted a sign on the railroad tracks into Birkenau. Temple Emmanuel remembers, Am Yisrael Chai. But as if a physical manifestation of a world that is not quite as far away from the hatred and the horrors of the Holocaust as we would like to believe this year, out of nowhere, huge, dark clouds rolled in above the march's ceremonial stage. Hours of speeches and remembrances were planned, but just as we arrived, a dark and ominous sky opened up with a torrential rainstorm of biblical proportions. Lightning and thunder crashed behind the stage. Within minutes, we were soaked through our ponchos as we joined a sea of 8,000 people, all slogging back through the rain so thick that you couldn't even see right in front of you. I couldn't believe how quickly the ground there pockmarked with huge puddles, dangerous and uneven, as we tried to keep track of members of our group who needed canes or other assistive walking devices, shouting towards each other over the noise of thousands of waterlogged witnesses staggering their way back to find their buses. we were also mindful of where we were. You know how when you're little, they teach you how to count the seconds between seeing lightning and when you hear thunder to tell you how close it is? Well, let's just say that count was not the least bit comforting as we continued to walk and search, weaving between moving buses until finally, in groups of 2 or 3, we straggled back onto our bus, which turned out to be the very last bus in the row. It was among the scarier experiences that I have had in my life. What felt like an eternity later, as group members finally gathered safely together, were removing soaked shoes and donning sweatshirts, an echo spread through the bus, first quietly and then louder. Hey, we got to leave. We get a warm shower, a change of clothes, a filling meal. For an instant, we had touched what others endured with no escape. And it was clear to everyone there that we were forever transformed by the responsibility to meet their loss with our lives. Someone then pulled out a bottle of vodka, passed around some cups. We all filled them up. We lifted a cup. L'chaim. L'chaim. To life. What does it look like to live, not just as a response to having escaped, but because so many did and do not? That old tidy trajectory of the march that we remember our past in Europe and then march triumphantly from Poland to Israel, the answer to the tragedy of our past was a nation reborn, was this year more complex. To come to Israel was not a joyful release, silly string and dancing through the streets on Yom HaAtzmaut. It was a continuation of witnessing, of Nova, the haunting car cemetery, bullet-ridden shelters, Hostage Square with its huge clock, counting the days, the hours, the minutes that hostages have languished in captivity. Out of 8,000 people who marched in Poland, only 400 came to Israel. One shop took that in stride, a shop on Ben Yehuda Street, which quipped in a poster on a brightly colored sign in the window, "End of the world sale. Discount for brave tourists." And in case we missed the seriousness of this moment, even the evening of Yom HaAtzmaut was canceled due to the catastrophic fires raging on the road between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, the wind heavy with ash that covered cars and sidewalks, thick with smoke that burned our lungs. L'chaim is easy when the troubles are in the past, when you've overcome and are triumphant. But how do we do l'chaim now? Well, it turns out that the answer to that question accompanied us, whispering in the background of our entire journey. At Auschwitz, as the rain pounded down, all of the dignitaries' speeches canceled, even the survivors' reflections canceled, what was it that they kept? They kept, as part of that program, just 2 songs. One, Agam Berger, former hostage, poignantly playing a violin that had survived the Shoah. There she was, saying, I still will play. My music will go on. And an elderly survivor singing in Yiddish about teaching the next generation, her eyes sparkling. Two songs which met the darkness descending around us with a message of perseverance and resilience, no matter what. L'chaim. We saw that spirit again where we least expected it, when we went to the Nova Festival site, now a heartrending memorial filled with signs planted in the dust of beautiful young people whose lives were horrifically cut short. In the somber silence, we walked between the tragic signs and the people, weeping and singing there, and one couldn't help but notice the beautiful pictures and inscriptions, each inscription equally beautiful. A young woman named Shear's memorial was adorned by a poem that she had written. Appreciate the beautiful moments and those that are less. Hug your loved ones tightly. You never know till when it will last. The sign concluded in big, bold letters, her wishes for everyone who saw these words. And be sure to keep your light bright and shining. You never know for just how many people you may be a lighthouse, for you never know how many people find their way home, even in the wildest storm, because you are there. A charge from Shir to each of us. L'chaim, keep living, keep giving. When we arrived at Hostage Square, heavy-hearted, I noticed a tent set up that was marked Nachal Oz. Now, I had spent a summer when I was 18 years old volunteering on Kibbutz Nachal Oz down south. And so I immediately made my way over to the tent, inviting some of our group to come and join me. The hosts of the tent shared with us the stories of those who had been killed or taken hostage, but then they asked me about my time on the kibbutz. I wistfully put my head down and recalled Shishi Shabbat, Friday night celebrations that were so beautiful there. They lit up with smiles, and suddenly leaning in, they said, wait, we have to tell you. Although since October 7th, we've been scattered all around the country, every Friday night, kibbutz members come here from wherever they are sheltering to do Shishi Shabbat together. It is with that strength that on the day of Yom HaAtzmaut, when the ash cleared and the skies were sunny again, and we were at the Tower of David, and we saw kids dancing, that members of our group joined right in, raising our arms in blessing, L'chaim. Jonathan Ornstein, the director of a magical little spot in Poland, the JCC in Krakow, said something counterintuitive to us as we stopped at his little outpost on our pilgrimage. He said, we are Jewish despite Auschwitz, not because of it. In the world today, we have to make a case for our victimhood, but that's a problem, he said. We Jews survived and thrived through the centuries because we never defined ourselves as victims. If he can say that in Krakow, Poland, all the more so, we must say it here. In a complex world where history is happening now, let us refuse to let our light be extinguished by darkness. Let us take every opportunity to live. At the mikveh, when we blessed our newest member of the Jewish people, her future father-in-law, with tears in his eyes, reflected that in a time of so much Jewish pain, she is a living embodiment of hope. If the march taught me anything, it is that so too are we. May we all emerge from here to say, today and every day, L'chaim. Shabbat Shalom. We wrap.